Well, an initiative to promote human rights and fight corruption in South Africa is set to take place from 2024. It's the Stellenbosch Dialogue that's going to be hosting this annual Premier Global Summit, as we're told. Professor Quinot of Stellenbosch University's Department of Public Law joining me this morning. Hello to you, Prof. Good to have you with us. So there's a lot we want to discuss, it seems, in this global dialogue. We want to discuss integrity, human rights, laws of conflict, anti-corruption and rule of law in Africa. I'm sure there's a lot more we can unpack closer to the time. The obvious question is, why now and why those topics?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Yes, I mean, the initiative comes from not only in South Africa a dire need for us to address this at the highest level, these issues around broadly integrity and good governance. As we are seeing all around us, that these are topics that's really hampering our developmental efforts. But a realization that the issues we are talking about are of such a nature that it's really not helpful to address them in piecemeal and low-level manner. These are issues that not only impact us on a national level, but in fact on a global level. And our thoughts are that from a continental perspective, we've got unique challenges. And as such, we think it's important that we launch a forum where we can have a discussion focusing on these broad good governance issues continentally, but with a global input.
So when it comes to a dialogue such as this, when you're looking at words like integrity, the rule of law in Africa, we'll get to that in a moment. I think the one that stands out for most people when I introduced you was they heard the word anti-corruption. That jumped up as a standout point for me as well. Considering what we've been going through in this country, I imagine that could take up the majority of the dialogue. Who are you hoping is going to be listening to this, and what are you hoping the powers that be will do off the back of this dialogue?
Yeah, so, well, firstly, we're hoping that the powers that be will actually be hosting and actively be involving in this dialogue. So our intention is certainly that governments from all around the continent and then beyond will actually have the highest level. So we're hoping really to get heads of state involved and really the leaders of the global community, in the sense of also international organizations, UN, AU, etc., to be active participants in this dialogue and to engage with leaders from civil society, from business, academia, etc., to discuss the issues and then to reach levels of consensus, at least on things that should be done. So what are the priorities? Where are the gaps? What should we be focusing on in the coming 12 months? And then to commit to this forum annually. That is to come back in 12 months and on the one hand look back and said, look, what have we achieved given what we said last year and where are we going from here? That is really what we're hoping to achieve. And then also to create just a forum or a space for these leaders and governments and organizations to engage each other in bilateral conversations. So, one can achieve in a very focused forum like this, one can achieve much by getting these people around the table. That could take months, to and fro between organizations. So we've seen examples of this. I mean, Davos comes to mind as one primary example of where exactly this happens. And we thought that in our continent, good governance, integrity, rule of law, those are the key issues at the moment. And we foresee they will be the key issues going forward for the foreseeable future. And we want to create that kind of space for leaders on our continent to come together and have those conversations.
Some people will say, though, what we could end up with, though, Prof, is a remake of the State of the Nation address. We could also see other speeches being rehashed in this. As well. So I certainly hope you get the big players involved. Of course, we know the President watches this show every morning. So President Ramaphosa, you've got an invite in 2024. Last question to you, though, Prof, and I'd like your opinion on this one. Of all the things we're going to discuss in 2024, let me remind viewers, integrity, human rights, laws of conflict, anti-corruption, and rule of law in Africa. Which is the one do you think is the most prevalent and most important discussion for us here in South Africa? What's the one that you're going, I'm not missing that point, that discussion?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult asking me that question. It's like asking me to pick between my children. But I mean, I would think that at least from a South African perspective, anti-corruption efforts must be right at the top. I think there's little doubt that that is one of our biggest challenges hampering development in this country at least, and I've got no doubt on the continent as well. So I think that would be a good starting point. And I think it's also a good, very practical point to start. It's some of these other topics are much more vague, high-level, general discussions. One may even say esoteric, but anti-corruption, as you said, is something that we all understand at a practical level. So that would perhaps be a very good practical point. And we're very much hoping that our president will be the formal host. And we know that he is publicly on record, has committed himself and his administration to really take action against corruption. So I think that would be an ideal kind of starting point for the conversation.
Oh, let's see if the president will avail himself come 2024. Certainly got enough time, as well as other significant leaders around the country. Prof. Quinot, I appreciate your time. If you have to choose a favorite child, at least you only have to buy one Christmas present. I suppose it's one way of getting around that. Have a good Christmas. Appreciate your time this morning. Professor Quinot from Stellenbosch University's Department of Public Law.